Welcome back to Finance Empire, Real Life Stories. Before we begin today's story, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine your phone rings right now. A cold voice tells you the police are on the way to arrest you. They know your name, your address, even your immigration history. Your chest tightens. Your mind goes blank. And suddenly, every safe thing in your life feels fragile. Now ask yourself honestly, would you stay calm? Or would fear take control? Because today's story is not just about a scam. It's about panic, pressure, fear, survival, and the terrifying moment when your own mind starts working against you. This is the kind of real life situation that can happen to anyone, especially hardworking immigrants trying to build a peaceful life. And while you listen, you're also going to learn powerful English vocabulary and real-world phrases people use during stressful situations. So get comfortable, pay attention to the dialogue, and think carefully about what you would do in Matteo's position. The afternoon had started so normally that Matteo almost forgot what stress felt like. Sunlight poured through the apartment blinds in long golden stripes, while the dryer hummed softly in the corner of the room. The smell of clean laundry filled the air. Matteo stood beside the dining table folding shirts one by one with slow, careful movements. His life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. 3 years earlier, he had arrived in the country with 2 suitcases, broken English, and a head full of anxiety. Since then, he had worked construction during the day and studied paperwork at night. He followed every immigration rule carefully. Every receipt was organized. Every tax document was saved in labeled folders. Matteo lived with constant caution, because he knew one mistake could destroy everything he had built. That Tuesday afternoon, however, he finally felt relaxed. He was thinking about dinner. Maybe chicken and rice. Maybe pasta if the grocery store still had the good sauce on sale. His mind drifted lazily from food to weekend plans until the vibration of his phone interrupted the silence. The screen displayed a restricted number. Matteo frowned. Normally he ignored unknown calls, but he had recently completed a medical checkup for a work permit renewal. Maybe it was the clinic calling back. Maybe they needed another form. Without thinking too much, he answered. A sharp voice immediately cut through the line. "Is this Matteo Vargas?" The tone carried authority like a loaded weapon. Not casual, cold, professional, dangerous. "Yes, this is he. This is Officer Miller with Federal Immigration Services, badge number 4419. Are you currently located at 422 Maple Street, apartment 3B? The blood drained from Matteo's face. That was his exact address. His fingers tightened around the phone, while a wave of heat rushed through his chest. Fear moved quickly through his body before logic even had time to respond. "Yes," he answered quietly. "I'm home. Is there a problem?" "There is a severe discrepancy connected to your immigration status and tax documentation." The caller snapped. "An active federal warrant for your arrest has been authorized this morning." The room suddenly felt smaller. Matteo slowly lowered himself into the chair beside the table, because his knees no longer felt stable. The folded laundry slipped from his lap onto the floor. "A warrant," he whispered. "There must be some mistake." "Do not interrupt me, Mr. Vargas." The officer's voice exploded with such force that Matteo physically flinched. "Our system shows fraudulent inconsistencies connected to your residency timeline and financial declarations. Federal officers are currently preparing to take you into custody." Matteo's heart hammered violently. Fraud. Custody. None of it made sense. He worked hard. He paid taxes. He renewed everything on time. He had spent years being careful. But hearing those words from an official-sounding voice made all his confidence disappear. "I have documents," Matteo said quickly. "I saved everything. I can explain. The time for explanations has passed." The sentence hit like a judge's hammer. Matteo looked around the apartment helplessly. His eyes landed on the organized folders, sitting neatly inside the desk drawer near the kitchen. For years those documents represented safety, protection, proof that he belonged here legally. Now suddenly they felt useless. The caller continued speaking with mechanical precision. "You entered the country on March 17th, 3 years ago through Terminal B International Airport. You are employed by Westline Construction Incorporated. Correct?" Matteo's mouth went dry. How did this stranger know all that? Only government offices had access to those details. "Yes," he answered weakly. "Then you understand the seriousness of this matter." Matteo pressed a trembling hand against his forehead. His breathing became shallow. His thoughts crashed into each other chaotically. Maybe there really was an error. Maybe someone stole his information. Maybe immigration made a mistake. Immigrants learn quickly that even small paperwork issues can become massive problems. One missing signature. One late renewal. One wrong address. Fear becomes part of daily life even when you follow the rules perfectly. The patrol unit is already on the way, the caller said calmly. That sentence shattered whatever stability Matteo still had left. His eyes immediately darted toward the apartment window. Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful. A dog walker crossed the street casually. Somewhere in the distance, children laughed near the park. The normal world continued moving while Matteo felt his own world collapsing. I don't understand, he whispered. I didn't do anything wrong. The law does not care about your feelings, Mr. Vargas. The voice sounded colder now. You are being classified as a potential flight risk. If you attempt to leave the residence before officers arrive, additional criminal charges will be added immediately. Flight risk. Criminal charges. Every phrase felt carefully designed to create maximum fear. And it worked. Matteo suddenly imagined handcuffs around his wrists. He imagined neighbors watching through their windows while police escorted him away. He imagined losing his job, his apartment, and the future he spent years building. Panic destroys rational thinking step by step. The caller understood that perfectly. Then came the sound that truly broke Matteo's remaining calm. A police siren screamed through the phone. The wail rose sharply before fading into the distance exactly like a patrol car racing through city streets. Do you hear that? The officer asked quietly. Matteo's stomach twisted. That unit is 3 blocks away from your residence. Matteo rushed toward the window and carefully lifted the blinds. His eyes scanned the street, desperately searching for flashing red and blue lights. Nothing. Still, his fear refused to disappear. Maybe the officers were nearby. Maybe they were turning the corner right now. Maybe he only had minutes left before everything ended. I don't see anyone, Matteo whispered. They are approaching from the north side. The caller answered immediately as if tracking police movements in real time. Remain exactly where you are. Matteo's chest tightened painfully. The scammer's greatest weapon wasn't anger. It was certainty. Every response sounded confident, official, final. The voice never hesitated. That certainty slowly infected Matteo's mind until his own thoughts no longer felt trustworthy. Please, Matteo begged softly. There has to be a misunderstanding. Silence filled the line for a moment. Then the officer's tone changed completely. Suddenly he sounded calmer. Almost sympathetic. Mr. Vargas, between you and me, I can see you have no violent criminal history. I believe this may be an administrative situation. Hope flickered weakly inside Matteo. Scammers understand human psychology perfectly. First they create terror, then they offer relief. The emotional swing makes victims cling desperately to any possible solution. What can I do? Matteo asked immediately. There may be a temporary option available. Matteo leaned forward in the chair. The caller lowered his voice almost like he was sharing confidential information. A federal stabilization bond can temporarily freeze the warrant, while the paperwork is reviewed. A bond. Yes. But this process must happen immediately before the officers arrive. Matteo wiped sweat from his forehead. How much? The answer came without hesitation. $4,000. The number slammed into Matteo's chest. That was nearly his entire emergency savings. Money he spent years protecting. Money meant for medical problems, rent emergencies, or helping family back home. I don't have that kind of cash, he whispered. The government does not accept physical cash for this procedure. The caller explained quickly. The payment must be secured through federally registered digital voucher codes. The sentence made no sense. But fear makes absurd things sound logical. When panic controls the brain, people stop analyzing details. They only focus on escaping danger. The caller continued aggressively. You now have 14 minutes before the warrant becomes permanent. Matteo's pulse exploded again. 14 minutes. The countdown transformed fear into urgency. Urgency kills critical thinking. I need you to stay on the line with me, the caller ordered. Do not contact anyone else. Not family. Not a lawyer. Not neighbors. I should call my attorney. Matteo said weakly. Absolutely not. The voice roared so suddenly that Matteo jumped. Outside communication during an active federal investigation counts as obstruction of justice. Another terrifying phrase. Another psychological trap. The scammer isolated Matteo from anyone who could help him think clearly. That isolation worked like poison. Without another voice in the room, the caller became Matteo's entire reality. The apartment felt silent and suffocating. The dryer stopped running. The hum disappeared. Everything became unnaturally still. Matteo realized his hands were shaking so hard, he could barely hold the phone. "I need you to listen carefully." The caller continued. "Take your wallet and your car keys. Drive to the nearest supermarket or pharmacy immediately. Stay on the phone the entire time." Matteo stood slowly. His legs felt weak beneath him. Part of his brain screamed that something was wrong, but the louder part screamed something else. What if this is real? That question trapped him completely. Because immigrants often live with quiet fear, hidden beneath everyday life. Even legal immigrants know systems can be confusing and unforgiving. The scammer understood that fear deeply, and weaponized it with terrifying precision. Matteo grabbed his keys from the counter. His reflection briefly caught in a dark microwave door. Pale face. Wide frightened eyes. Sweat shining across his forehead. He barely recognized himself. And as he walked toward the apartment door, with the stranger still whispering instructions into his ear, Matteo had no idea he was only minutes away from either losing everything or waking up from the nightmare. But that realization would come later, because the real psychological battle was only beginning. And in the next part, Matteo enters the grocery store, where the scam finally starts to crack apart piece by piece. One strange sentence, one tiny mistake, one moment of doubt that changes everything. But by then, the fear has already gone deep inside his mind. And escaping panic is much harder than escaping a criminal.